You're listening to the Film File right here on No Barriers Radio, the film show for film geeks by film geeks. Welcome, and yes, indeed, we are back. I am still Lee Ford.
And I'm definitely still Andy Meakin. Thinking back to all those weeks ago when the social challenge was set out, and it was horror films that went under the radar and don't get spoken about enough. We had one amusing answer to start with over on Facebook, which with Al Bestall saying Melania.
Terrifying.
Lindsay Story said, not sure if it slipped under the radar, but The Autopsy of Jane Doe is a horror nobody seems
Love
to
that
have seen
film
or heard.
so much.
Lindsay really liked it. And a horror TV show that Lindsay thinks is criminally underrated is Them on Prime. Defo recommends
Love it. Yeah.
Rod McFarlane gave us a handful with The Host, the Korean film, Frontiers, a French film, Martyrs, Mum and Dad, the British film, and House, a Japanese film. Tony Henshaw gave us 3 Cases of Murder, particularly the first story in the picture. Lee Christopher Leary particularly enjoyed the first Ready or Not. Neil Flavell, Shocker by Wes Craven.
Oh yeah, good film.
Patricia Meakin, The Innocents, the 1961 film.
Yeah,
she says it was an X-rated film at the time for over 16s only. She was 14 years, 7 months old when she went to see it. No form of ID available then. Was worried about getting thrown out. Must try to find it to watch again. Over on Threads, Rathra Music said The Empty Man. Mr. Monk Hip Hop Horror. Boys from County Hell. Must rewatch it soon. Human Monies said Ramekin, Toad Road, Save the Green Planet, Psychos in Love, and Hellswine. Warlock from 1989 was a suggestion from...
Love Warlock.
Faradon says Julian Sands is incredibly sinister and chilling. This movie goes hard and somehow manages to inject a little humour as well. Monkey Man OB said, if Under the Radar we're talking not noticed by the mainstream because horror fans will be more than familiar with titles. They've offered in Feast, Midnight Meat Train, Assassination Nation, Blood Glacier, Sexy Killer, Trick or Treat, and The Orphanage. And followed that up to say, was listening to a podcast about the evolution of slashers, and while Psycho was present, they missed out Peeping Tom. So I'm adding that. The film with 3 brains threw in, before he became so closely aligned with Stephen King adaptations, Mike Flanagan had this run. Oculus, Hush, and Ouija, Origin of Evil. All excellent under-the-radar horror films. Ouija, Origin of Evil, especially given it's a superior sequel to a lackluster low-budget slogfest and is far better than it has any right to be. You could even argue that Absentia should be added into this list. Pie Hole in the Sky threw in Los Sin Nombre from 1999. Still chills me to the bone. Paul Day One said 3 that I've seen at film festivals and loved are Dead Shack, Cannibals and Carpet Fitters, and The Moor. The Moor was my favourite film from the whole year. Worth tracking down. I remember liking Dead Birds as something different. Mimic.
Loved Dead Birds. I think that was on my list.
Mimic and Deep Rising from my childhood. And the only films that have scared me and stayed with me, Wreck and Audition. Throw in Switchblade Romance as well. The Real Rashid Stephen Petit said Resurrection, Housewife, Darling, The Black Coat's Daughter, We Are Still Here, Hellmouth, The Strange Colour of Your Body's Tears, The Whisper in Darkness, Dead Birds, and Calvert. And Semperisons said, I was going to say Inbred, Utterly Bonkers, and Gross. Mastodon, Ozzy, List Time, as he says. Spiral from 1998, the forgotten original sequel to Ringo. Edismen made a splash upon release, but I've heard nothing about it since. Antiviral, Brandon Cronenberg's debut feature. Possessor, even his more popular follow-up isn't talked about as much as it should be. Deerskin, Quentin Dupier's best movie, in my humble opinion. And The Wolf House, Willy's Wonderland, and Colour Outer Space. None are exactly obscure, but neither are they as widely seen as they deserve. Great list as always from Ozzy. Sean T. on Mastodon said, I'm quite a fan of Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon from 2006. It turns the thriller killer genre on its head a bit with some behind-the-scenes action. And M. Jack says The Changeling with George Scott.
Well, thank you to everybody who's contributed. I think I could go on, and I'm sure you could go on with a list of underrated horror movies. I'm going to stay in horror territory. Well, it doesn't have to be horror, but it is something that has stuck with you all of your life. Something you've either seen on TV or as a movie that gave, probably years of therapy from watching. It might be the first time you saw something scary that you never went back to. Case in point, I showed the kiddo Mars Attacks when he was about 7, I think, thinking he would find it fun and amusing. We're still paying for the therapy bills now. I don't know why that one film affected him as much as anything else, because it is crazily, funnily beautiful. But it's the one thing that made him hide behind the sofa and absolutely detested. So what was that thing that you saw that stuck with you all your adult life that you've maybe not even gone back to, or if you have gone back to, you went, really? That's what scared me? I tell you what, Andy, for me, it was the Poseidon Adventure and teaching myself to swim underwater, just in case, stuck with me all of my life.
Mine was Poseidon Adventure, but it was teaching myself to view the world upside down.
Or the ending, there was a TV film called The Snow Goose with Jenny Agutter, and there began my lifelong love of Jenny Agutter. So something that has affected you, that you have watched, whether it be horrific, whether it be traumatic in a positive way, but something that stayed with you through the power of a visual medium. Do you know what to do?
Answer the question.
Head on over to social media channels, search for FilmFile UK. We're on there. I'll post the question out during the week, so you've got time to reply before our next show. You can email us, podcast@filmfile.uk, or if you're on Spotify, there's a comments box below the show. Pop your answer in that lovely box.
And that leads us on nicely to talk about this week's show. What have we got for you? Well, we have a deep dive into, well, no era made better action movies than the 80s and the 90s. And we're going to talk about one of those movies, and that is Nicolas Cage in Con Air. We have reviews of
Obsession, horror film that landed at cinemas this weekend. Normal, which has got a very shrunk back release across the UK at the moment, so you might not get a chance to watch it.
And I'll be discussing The Punisher, One Last Kill. But before that, we've got some news, we've got some views, and we have this week's box office. So what's happening in the world of box office? You know what? I don't have a clue. Having left my cocoon this morning, I don't know what's doing well. I don't know what's doing well, but I know somebody who does.
Over in the US, Michael kept the top spots, 26.1 million this weekend, with Devil Wears Prada taking the second place with 18 million added to its total. Obsession in third place with 16.1 million. A very strong opening for the low-budget horror. Mortal Kombat 2 in fourth place, 13.4 million, and Sheep Detectives rounding out the top five with 9.3 million. Here in the UK, it's Michael again at the top spot, adding another 4.4 million onto its total. Devil Wears Prada 2 in second place, 3.2 million. Sheep Detectives in third with 1.4 million. Obsession in fourth with 1.3 million. And Mortal Kombat 2 rounding things off with 598,000. So, a quietish release week with no major real hits, but Obsession has battled hard against Michael to stay towards the top of the US box office in particular. Worth noting that Obsession, as a low-budget horror, and it's really low budget. I read somewhere it's about 1 million it cost to make, and it's already made a significant profit, to say the least. Devil Wears Prada's still marching on. Mortal Kombat 2, not a very good holdover. It's not going to be breaking even, I reckon. But It is worth noting with something like Mortal Kombat, it will get a lot of revenue from merchandise sales.
Yeah.
It will get revenue from its streaming deals. It will become a profitable film once it's on home release. The Mortal Kombat films have never been successful, and like I said last week, using the argument that it's been 5 years since the first film, people have forgotten about it, when Devil Wears Prada is sat right there making lots and lots of money when it's 20 years, is a null argument. Mortal Kombat has never been a big success. I've always been a big fan. I've always acknowledged that it's never been a big success. Stop thinking it's some kind of conspiracy, guys.
We know that Denis Villeneuve has now finished basically Dune 3. He's going to put all of its focus into the next James Bond film. So everything that you've read about casting rumors, you may as well put aside, because there ain't no news like no news. And this is no news really, other than the fact that Near Gold, one of the world's most renowned casting agents, has been given the task of enlisting the new James Bond. There are names that were being bandied around, from Aaron Taylor Johnson,
Callum Turner, Jacob Elordi.
It seems that they are just rumors. All we do know is whoever is chosen, they will have to ooze sex appeal. So that's me and you out.
Yes, Amazon MGM Studios issued a statement saying the search for the next James Bond is underway. While we don't plan to comment on specific details during the casting process, we're excited to share more news with 007 fans as soon as the time is right. Within the next few months, we'll start getting some news on this. So, like Lee said, anything that you've heard before, ignore it. All that we can say is that they will be casting youngish because they want an actor who will be around for 3 or 4 films. Moving over to... we spoke about the original film of this back in episode 278.
It's one of our deep dives.
Magic is getting a remake, and who better to helm it than Sam Raimi?
When I first read this story, I kind of thought, oh, Sam Raimi, send help, drag me to hell. And then there's the other Sam Raimi who made the brilliant The Gift and the even better A Simple Plan, which was much more character driven. And that's the Sam Raimi I'm hoping is going to do the Magic remake.
Yeah, for those who haven't listened to our deep dive or watched the film, the original film had Anthony Hopkins in it playing Corky, a magician and ventriloquist who reaches fame alongside his obnoxious dummy called Fats. Just as he's about to sign a network deal for his own TV show, he disappears off to the Catskills. And once they're reconnecting with a high school love, Fats starts to take charge of the situation in murderous ways. It's a great psychological thriller. And it's just ripe. It's absolutely ripe for a Sam Raimi kind of take on it.
James Franco has joined the ever-growing cast for John Rambo, the prequel to First Blood, which sees Rambo set during the Vietnam War. Variety has reported that Franco will only have a small role in the feature, which is being shot in Thailand. The film stars Noah Centineo as the young John Rambo, with all the events taking place before the events of First Blood, and David Harbour has taken on the role of Major Sam Troutman.
I'm looking forward to this Rambo film simply because of Sisu Helmer, Jalmari Helander. I just think that what he can bring to it would make something a little bit brutal and fun. Those people waiting for a third part of 28 years later, it's not been a good time over the past couple of months, but a little glimmer of hope came from British actor Alfie Williams over the past week. In an Instagram post, the actor is seen somewhere indoors holding a bow and arrow and shooting distance targets, and captions the post, "It's great to be back." The speculation has gone wild, suggesting that production on the third film is already gearing up in some way. Others suggest he's simply just doing archery as a hobby, but confusion is swirling as to whether anything will continue because Bone Temple didn't perform.
No, did you see the article about Nia DaCosta and her disappointment with the reaction to the film?
Yeah, it was critically acclaimed. Audience scores were really high, but the release of the second film so soon after the first one seemed to lead to audiences just completely overlooking it. Streaming didn't help either. The film had a very weak debut on Netflix, and ultimately the studio is rumoured to have lost around 20 million on the feature. So there's hesitation from the studio to proceed with another one. But there is the hope that the known return of Cillian Murphy in a major capacity for a third film would bring audiences back. Maybe Alfie's let slip something to just start people chanting and starting the campaign to get this made. I don't know. Just one more film. It doesn't have to be high budget either. Danny Boyle will be able to strip it back and do it as low budget as he can get away with. I just want a third part. I want finale. I want closure.
The Batman 2, Matt Reeves has confirmed Sebastian Stan, Scarlett Johansson, and Charles Dance as now are part of the cast. However, who they're playing is still in question. So rumors abound that Sebastian Stan is going to be playing Harvey Dent and Scarlett Johansson as his wife, with Dance as his father. This is pure speculation at this part. We do not know who they're playing, and Reeves has basically left it up in the air.
The complete list of casting within this, obviously returning, is Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne Batman, Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon, Colin Farrell as the Penguin, Andy Serkis as Alfred. Sebastian Stan, Scarlett Johansson and Charles Dance do seem to be the Dent family. Sebastian Koch has still got to be confirmed. Brian Tyree Henry is playing an unknown character. Jamie Lawson as Mayor Bella Real, and Gil Perez Abraham as Officer Martinez. Absent from the list, Paul Dano and Barry Keoghan as Riddler and Joker, but we don't necessarily have the full list as of yet, so they might still pop up.
There's been tons of speculation as to the direction that Reeves is going to take on this next movie. Mr. Freeze was bandied around as the primary villain for an awful long time, and an image showing a snowbound looking set has help fuel the fire that, in fact, Mr. Freeze is going to be the villain. But we just don't know. All I would hope is that we don't get the kind of Seven approach that we got with the Batman, because we can't go into fantastical villains within that world. It's too grounded. So maybe, and hopefully, Reeve is going to push the envelope a little bit, but I can kind of very much doubt it.
It's been 15 years since
Has
the
it?
Tintin film
Oh,
came out at cinemas, and at the time it was very heavily discussed that Spielberg and Jackson were working together, with Spielberg making the first film, Jackson was going to make the second, and then they'll work together to make the third film. And we've been sat waiting for 15 years after the fun of that first Tintin
in the same
film.
seat that you saw it in the cinema, just with the hope it's going to come back.
Well, Peter Jackson has offered some update. Finally, he's confirmed over the past week that he's been working on the script for the sequel recently. Appearing at a rendezvous session at the Cannes Film Festival, he was discussing his career and upcoming works, and he said, "I've been working with Fran Walsh on another Tintin script. I was writing it in the hotel room here. It's an active, real thing, and I'm getting back into the Tintin world, and I actually love it." He went on to say that he's very aware of the pact and obligation that he and Spielberg had all those years ago, and goes on to say, "The deal was that Stephen directs one, I direct another. Stephen did his film, then for 15 years, I haven't made mine. I feel very awkward about that." It does hold hope. That Tintin film was the best Indiana Jones film that we've had since the original Indiana Jones films. It was so much fun.
It was fun.
Wonderful. It captured it. I mean, I've always been a fan of Tintin, so it captured everything that I loved about Tintin, whilst also making it great action-packed adventure. Whether it will get any of the original cast reprising their roles, it was mo-capped, so they could mostly do it, remains to be seen. But at least we finally got news that Peter Jackson's finally fulfilling his part of the deal.
It doesn't really matter, does it, who they cast? Jamie Bell played Tintin, but if he doesn't come back, it doesn't affect the film, because all the characters look exactly as they should. Interesting. I thought it was a great film. I thought it was a good family film. I know it struggled to find an audience in the US, but it did better across the world. That's because Tintin is more appreciated, I think, especially in Europe than he is in the US. So fingers crossed. I've read recently that Peter Jackson is going to be looking at doing the Silmarillion as part of his Lord of the Rings world building. I don't know if that's a rumor or that is on his radar. So what's going to come first? Re-entering the Middle-earth sagas or Tintin? We'll wait and see.
Let's rattle through some quick newses before we...
Can I mention Westworld?
I just had that as my very first bit of quick news.
Well, great minds think like ours. So Westworld, the Michael Crichton film that came out in the 70s, which we adore, starred Yul Brynner as the gunfighter. Very Michael Crichton. A theme park where everything goes wrong. Sound familiar? Well, he did it first with Westworld. There was, of course, a sequel, Future World, TV series, the HBO series, which opened up the idea of what is it to be human. It seems now that David Koepp is in the works at Warner Brothers with apparently a mystery filmmaker circling to direct.
Yeah, this is going to be an adaptation of the original 1973 film and not a continuation or adaptation of the more recent series. Good. I'm very much on board with it. Day of the Jackal, TV series that came out last year on Sky, and if you've not watched it yet, get it watched.
You loved it, didn't you?
Second season has added Matt Bomer from Fellow Travellers to the cast as a recurring villain. Filming on the second season is now underway in Budapest. Other cast additions include Pablo Schreiber and Werucha Opia, who've both been cast as series regulars alongside leading man Eddie Redmayne. If you've not watched it yet, now's time to catch up with Day of the Jackal, ready for when season 2 comes out.
So it seems that James Cameron's Avatar series, well, fourth film is still up in the air. It is not confirmed that it's happening.
Yeah, he's been talking a lot around because it's been slowly declining. I mean, it's still made a huge ton of money, but each of the films has made less money than the previous one. And it's at this point that it has to be, the production needs to be tighter. It needs to not be as expensive to make. And so he's looking at the story ideas that he's got and trying to work out whether he can get them done cheaper and with a quicker turnaround as well. He's also been talking about this, there's the Billie Eilish concert thing that he worked on.
Yeah.
Which is out at the moment. A matter of days.
Shot in 6 days.
which he said that like that showed him that you can be put under like loads of pressure and still bring everything together in a short period of time. So he's hoping that he'll be able to transfer that kind of approach over to whatever he does next, be it Avatar or be it something else. And he wants to work with Robert Rodriguez again, Alita Battle Angel 2. Come on, guys. And if he can keep tight productions, he can keep the budgets down and make these things more profitable.
Yeah, he's talking about shooting something within 17 days, which, of course, Robert Rodriguez started his entire career by shooting fast and slick, basically.
Yep, it means that you can get big name stars in just for one day of shooting and they hardly cost anything.
Yeah.
It's how Wes Anderson also works. That's why Wes Anderson films are stacked with cast, is because most of the cast are only there for like 1 or 2 days. Fox has announced a contemporary reimagining of the 1980s TV series, Flashback Kids, Highway to Heaven.
God, that was an awful show. That was such a bad show.
The original show starred Michael Landon as a probationary
It did.
angel who's sent to Earth to earn his wings by helping people in need. If you think Quantum Leap, but with angels, that's basically what Highway to Heaven was.
Yeah.
This new take is going to hail from writer-producer Jason Katims, who gave us Friday Night Lights and Amblin Television, and is going to premiere during the 2027 to 2028 season. There's potential within this thing to do
potential
something
for me not to watch it, ever.
unique. But if it just becomes the melodramatic schlock that series was.
It was. It was one of those shows that had a moral each week. Anything that had a moral. That's why I was never into He-Man. It had to end with a moral. Don't tell me. Let me figure it out for myself.
I don't want morals.
I want to be immoral.
Curry Barker, who has directed Obsession, which we'll be talking about later, is being recently tapped to write and direct a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake for A24. He spoke with Total Film recently and says that his take's going to be quite different from the other reboots. In his words, I really think the potential for that series has not been fully realised. I actually feel like a lot of the remakes went the opposite direction that it should have gone. I'm really excited to do a Texas Chainsaw that's not just about a guy chasing some people around with a chainsaw, that has some heart to it. You care about these characters and want to see them survive, and it's brutal. Hits the nail on the head. Every one of the sequels or follow-ups or reboots has focused too much on the chainsaw. The chainsaw that was literally in the last couple of minutes of the original film. That's not what the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is. Strip it back, get it back to just being the franchise that it could be.
We've been talking about it over several episodes. Ryan Coogler's X-Files reboot has now cast some great names. Amy Madigan, Steve Buscemi, and Ben Foster. Whether they are guest roles or not, I'm not sure. Hamish Patel, you remember from yesterday, and Daniel Deadwyler will play a modern take on Mulder and Scully, which, of course, they are people of colour. So a certain amount of fandom, shall we say, use that term loosely, kicked off because they are people of colour. So much so that Gillian Anderson has protested to the fact that give these guys a chance. You know, you've got people like Coogler, who's got directing and writing chops. You've got a fantastic cast. But of course, there's always going to be that element of fandom who just want all their heroes to be potentially white 30s men with a female sidekick, let alone a female leading character. But good luck to it. We are absolutely looking forward to it.
And finally, fans of the Oscars, who for the past 2 years have been treated to Conan O'Brien hosting in such a magnificent way. Well, good news. Conan is set to return for a third year in a row as the host of next year's Oscars. The 99th Oscars next year are set to air live on ABC and Hulu on March the 14th. So I have already booked that day off work.
And that, folks, that's the news. You're listening to No Barriers Radio, and you're listening to the Film File, the film show for film geeks by film geeks. And if you're enjoying the show, then check out the Film File podcast, which you can find quite easily by heading over to your favorite podcast platform, searching for the Film File, hitting that subscription button, and leaving a like. More to come on No Barriers Radio, and more to come on the Film File. And you can get in touch with us right here at Film File HQ by simply
heading over to social media platforms, search for FilmFile UK. You can get in touch with us through there. You can email us, podcast@filmfile.uk. Get in touch with us with any thoughts on films, any films that you want us to deep dive at some point, any films that you disagree with our opinions on. Feel free. We're always open to listen to other sides of the story.
Now it's time for this week's deep dive. We're going to take you back to the late 90s because the 80s and the 90s gave us some of the most over-the-top, best action films that we've ever seen. They had a certain kind of style. They had a certain kind of leading man. They had a certain kind of energy. And boy, does Con Air have energy.
After serving the last of his sentence, Cameron Poe is taking the first plane home to his wife and daughter.
Today's flight is a special one. We're populating Louisiana's Felton Penitentiary. These guys are the worst of the worst.
See a lot of celebrities among us. I see 11 primetime lives, 3 Regents and Kathy Lees, and a genuine 2020 interviewee.
What you looking at, punk?
Nothing, I was just admiring your cage.
But one wrong flight
Stewardess, what's the in-flight movie today?
can ruin your whole day.
What happened? We caught the plane, man!
Welcome to Con Air.
Jailbird 1, you are not cleared for takeoff.
And nobody on this aircraft gives a flying.
The issue here is how the plane is brought down.
Shoot it down.
There are innocent people up there.
He's got a little girl to come home to. He's been waiting for this day for 8 years.
What are you gonna do? What do you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna save the day.
The 90s, like you suggested, was a decade packed full of rambunctious action fests from start to finish. Mega blockbusters of that decade were loud, they're brash, they're extremely fun. A carryover from the back end of the 80s, where films like Predator and Die Hard laid out the template. We were fed delights such as True Lies, Navy SEALs, Hudson Hawk, Last Boy Scout, Prince of Thieves, Under Siege, Cliffhanger, Last Action Hero, Desperado, Face Off, Independence Day, and of course, Mission Impossible, rounding off the 90s. But in amongst all of them, we had the film that I feel genuinely exemplifies the entire spirit of 90s action movie, Con Air.
Yes, directed by Simon West and produced by Uber producer Jerry Bruckheimer. And as Andy said, kind of the end of an era for this kind of filmmaking. And this is what a way to go out. The film stars Nicolas Cage, who sports a very disconcerting mane of hair as a wrongly convicted Army Ranger with the fantastic name of Cameron Poe is heading back to his wife. Easy, simple story. However, he's doing it via Con Air, an independent airline that transports criminals across the country. His plane is hijacked by the other criminals. While they seize control of the plane, he attempts to wrestle control and return home. Nicolas Cage at his most Nicolas Cage in this, alongside a fantastic cast of John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, Danny Trejo, and where is he now? John Cusack.
Mick Cage was on an absolute roll in the mid-90s. He'd gone from being low-budget indie output to being a big megastar, and he carried it well. With films like Face Off and The Rock, he showcased that he could be an action hero. In this film, I mean, Cameron Poe, like you say, what a crazy name. It's not my favourite name in all action films ever. Chev Chelios still takes the cake. But a guy imprisoned because he used his military skills in order to defend the honour of his wife and ended up killing someone. And what do you know? Ends up getting returned home on a hijacked plane full of criminals. But what makes this film really work is that those criminals, like you said, are played by some masterful acting presences, and particularly the central lead. And let's be honest, this film, as much as it's a Nick Cage film, it's more a Malkovich film, because Cyrus the Virus Grissom has to be not only one of the best named villains of all time, but one of the best villains that you love to hate. Every moment that he's on screen, he just oozes weird, sinister charisma and throws out biting one-liners. It's Cyrus the Virus Grissom who really is the selling point for this film. You get joy from every bit of his moments, every bit of his anger, every bit of his frustrations. And Malkovich is clearly having an absolute blast of a time in this film.
You know that Bruce Willis turned down the role of that. and I'm so pleased, because this is an era where John Malkovich could do crazy better than anybody else. We talked about him the other week opposite Clint Eastwood doing crazy in The Line of Fire. But all of the crazies on this particular flight are some of the best character actors out there. So you've got Ving Rhames as Nathan Diamond Dog Jones. You've got Steve Buscemi as the Marietta Mangler, a kind of notorious serial killer. Danny Trejo MC Gainey, who is one of those character actors, wherever he pops up, just leaves an impression. It's a fantastic, over-the-top cast.
This film is just bombastic action set pieces, flashy camera work, and arguments about bunnies in boxers. But boy, is it 2 hours of absolute carnage and fun. Michael Bay had laid out this kind of template for action film, but Simon West in this evolved it by stripping it down and letting the characters just inhabit the moments. The names involved are great. They all make a lasting impression. And even like side characters such as Dave Chappelle and Renali Santiago gets to steal fun moments, whilst Cage just simply does what Cage does so well, or particularly did back then. He's not a great actor, but that doesn't matter in this film because he just gets to throw out, "Why didn't you put the bunny back in the box?" kind of lines, which are awfully written, but delivered with such sincerity that it makes it work. This is a film that isn't serious, and that's what really lends well. It's having fun. John Cusack, you could say, is slightly underserved in this because he's more a side character. While all the stuff is going on board on the plane and Nicolas Cage is head-to-head with John Malkovich, on the ground, US Marshal Vince Larkin, played by Cusack, is starting to deduce what's actually happened to this hijacked plane. And he's got his own enemy to battle against, which is Cole Meany's wonderfully over-the-top DEA agent, Duncan Malloy, clashing over opinions over the situation. Cole Meany never really gets a role that he can really get his teeth into. But this time, he really gets to be he's the most hated character. You've got serial killers, you've got rapists, you've got terrorists, but the true villain of the piece is this DEA agent.
It's interesting because this is kind of the pinnacle of the late 90s action films. Excessive, outrageous, a film that doesn't particularly spend any time with logic, but everything is turned up to 11. And it's a pure Bruckheimer blockbuster. Directed by Simon West, an English director who never made a film that hadn't starred indie actors and been thrown into this huge, eccentric piece of work, does remarkably well at holding it together.
It holds together because it's not serious. Because everything
is a fantastic idea, though.
Every moment of dialogue is just a setup to get them to the next action set piece. And it knows that. And so it just has fun between each explosion and bombastic over-the-top moments. It has fun with having the characters just talking to each other and expressing their personalities through lines of dialogue that are immediately quotable. But yeah, it's well made. It's a laugh. This is popcorn entertainment at its best, exemplifying everything about 90s blockbuster action films and putting it into one beautifully neat package that no matter how many times I rewatch this, I always fall in love with it again. And this is another one of those films that if you come home late from work and you put the TV on and you switch over to ITV and there it is, it's playing, no matter what point of the film it's up to, you know that you're going to be sat and watch it right through to the end, because it's one of those films that as soon as you see a moment from it, you are reminded about the love that you have from it.
You know, for a film that is so removed from, let's say, reality, the whole idea behind Con Air is rooted in fact, so much so, the story really starts with a Los Angeles Times writer back in 1993 who'd heard about the air operations divisions of the US Marshal Service, which flies prisoners around the country for transfers, medical examinations, and court appearances. The idea stemmed from this article where one of the guards had mentioned a convict's dream of using the service to escape, adding that a successful attempt had never occurred. And that's where the idea started. Scott Rosenberg, whose screenplay for Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, a twisted character-driven drama inspired by his father's death, was getting a lot of buzz. So in 1994, producer Todd Garner hired him for Con Air. The writer spent a jovial 3 days flying with some of the cons and then wrote the draft. All of the characters were musically inspired. Rosenberg listened to Lynyrd Skynyrd, the Allman Brothers while writing, and Poe was a take on his respective Southern rock frontman, long-haired beardies, people like Greg Allman and Ronnie Van Zant.
The US Marshals who run the actual Con Air program apparently wanted nothing to do with this movie.
You can see where Jerry Bruckheimer would want to get involved. He'd already done Michael Bay's The Rock. Bruckheimer then passed the script on to Cage, who loved it, and they started together making Poe a different kind of character, changing him from his initial character, who was a random thug, to this virtuous army ranger. And it was Cage himself who decided that Poe would have a plush toy bunny as a gift for his daughter that he must protect at all costs.
The score by Mark Mancina and Trevor Rabin dominates throughout, and that's part of the joy of it. It's uplifting, it's bombastic, it's over the top, it's perfectly placed for it. It's a film that's utter nonsense, delivered in the loudest possible manner. Looking at the casting, I mean, the casting's so great. We could have originally had Sylvester Stallone or Kurt Russell for Cameron Poe, who were both offered the role to start with, but I can't see anyone else aside from Nicolas Cage in this role.
No, I can't. It's interesting enough that Bruckheimer's always had an eye for talent when it comes to his directors as well. He always has a tendency to use directors who are on the up. Case in point, Top Gun with Tony Scott, Adrian Lyne for Flashdance. He originally wanted Tony Kaye, who would go on to make American History X. But do you know what Simon West's claim to fame is before this movie?
Go on.
I'm going to rickroll you here. He directed Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up video. You can see how working with homicidal characters, that was a good introduction.
Nicely played, sir. Nicely played. John Cusack considers Con Air to be a bad movie. He hated the time that he spent working on it, so much so that he says he barely remembers it. He only did it, 1, because of the money, and 2, to use as leverage in order to make his own indie passion projects. Like I said, his character was kind of sidelined and wasn't really involved in most of the film, and I can kind of see why he's not that keen on it. Malkovich, there's a great story when John Malkovich and Samuel L. Jackson were both guests on the Graham Norton show in 2015. And Norton had pointed out that they'd never done a movie together given their extensive filmographies. And Jackson said that, well, none of my movies are serious and he's a serious actor. To which Malkovich replied, no, I was in Con Air. If that's serious, I'm an astronaut. So he kind of embraces the silliness of it. And who blames him? Because he got all the best lines. He got all the best moments. He played the best villain. He was a last-minute casting for that villain. They really struggled on the production of this to get the villain of Cyrus Grissom right. And it was a last-minute casting that I think it made the film what it is.
Even though critically everybody thought it was an adrenaline blast, but it didn't get great reviews. But that didn't stop it finding an audience, with Con Air grossing $224 million worldwide of a budget of around 70-odd million. This film is just bombastic. As I said, it is an adrenaline blast, very much in the same way as Bruckheimer's The Rock, which introduced Cage as an action star. And if you want all of your action where you just keep going, just give me more but bigger, then Con Air is the film for you.
If you've never seen Con Air, you really should do. Just switch your brain off, put some popcorn in your lap, and just enjoy just under 2-hour roller coaster ride of fun entertainment. If you do want to watch it, head on over to either Prime or Disney Plus, where you can watch it as part of the subscription service. It regularly drops onto Sky Movies as well, so have a check over there. It's nearly always on ITV3 or 4. It's a regular 2 a.m. jobby over there. Or just look on your physical media shelf, because I'm sure that you must have a copy of this in one format or another somewhere.
It'd be rude
Everyone should, and if you haven't, go and buy it. It's well worth it. It's a great treat to get the family around and just enjoy Con Air for the nonsense that it is.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive. And now it's time for this week's reviews. Andy, open up the review box and let it free.
First film that I'm going to look at is the low-budget horror film Obsession.
Obsession. If Nikki means this much to you, say, I think we should grab a drink sometime. One wish will. I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone in the entire world.
I love you so much.
Is she okay? No. What kind of spells you put on her?
People always say it's a mistake to start dating your best friend, as it tends to ruin the relationship. And boy, does this film work with that, albeit in a supernaturally infused way. Baron, played by Michael Johnston, has long held romantic feelings for his childhood friend and co-worker Nikki, played by Indy Navarrete, but his shyness always prevented him from finding out if she held similar feelings. Her coy replies to him never help matters, making it hard to deduce if she's flirting with him or simply just being a fun, jokey friend. When looking in a Mystic shop for a gift for her after he learns that she lost her crystal necklace, he picks up a gimmicky one-wish willow that claims to grant only one wish when it's broken. After dropping Nikki off after the night out, Nikki asks him if he likes her, but his anxiety gets in the way and he misses his chance. Frustratedly, he breaks the willow, saying he wished Nikki loved him more than anyone else in the world. And almost immediately, things get strange as Nikki returns to the car and asks to stay the night with Baron. Is it the one wish come true? Or is Nikki in a weird mental place, given that she tells Baron that she got news that her father has cancer? Pretty soon, Baron will discover the dark reality of getting what you wished for. General story-wise, there's nothing actually new here, and within the first 15 minutes, I'd pretty much garnered exactly how the rest of the film was going to play out, having seen or read similar tales before of wish fulfillment gone wrong. But that didn't make this film any less powerful, and the entire runtime zipped by as I was caught up in the style and the performances on display as the film shone a spotlight on toxic relationships gone wrong, mixed with some supernatural aspects. As it becomes clear that Nikki is definitely not acting normal in extremely obvious ways, Baron still wants to make it work and seems willing to overlook the rather bizarre behaviour that Nikki is exhibiting. These moments are equally comical and disturbing as you go from finding the idea of it ridiculous, but then seeing the brutal reality that this is what victims in toxic relationships do when they try to excuse the behaviours of their partners. This aspect grounds what would otherwise just be another variation on the monkey's paw type of tale. The standout in all of this is Indy Navarrete, who effortlessly switches from coy and fun to twisted and psychotic in a heartbeat. The fierce intensity of her ever-increasing insanity chills you right to the core as she becomes more and more paranoid that Baron doesn't love her as much as she loves him. As Baron looks for ways out of the relationship, Nikki is no longer a person, but is a vessel inhabited by the wish itself, and her mannerisms become less human as the film plays out. Navarrete is mesmerising as the embodiment of a possessive and possessed partner taken to the extreme. Ultimately satisfying, Obsession delivers a familiar tale in a stunningly effective manner, with Barker's direction on a staggeringly low budget, making the most out of every shot to keep the escalating terror running, whilst ensuring there are moments of humour that break the oppressive tension. We are really genuinely looking at the horrors that have been out over the past month and a half, living in a really good time for creative horror that doesn't do anything that you've not seen before, but delivers it in such a perfect way.
It's interesting that you say that, Andy, because I totally agree. You've got all the big studios spending a fortune on horror, but it's always the smaller films. It's always the films that come from a singular voice that break through. And studios never seem to learn this. When you want to make good horror, keep it simple, keep it cheap, and keep it imaginative, and don't spend huge, vast amounts of money trying to make films that audiences don't find, because they will find the clever and the interesting. A film that I really want to see and will hopefully have seen by the time we meet next week, and that is Normal.
I took a sheriff job in a little town called Normal, Minnesota.
Weather advisory, winter storm threatening later this week.
Reports two assholes screaming at each other.
All right, separate! People seem friendly enough. Whoa, 16.8 million. Where the hell did this town get that kind of money?
Community really came together on that one.
Yeah, I would say. Is that a police scanner you got? You keeping tabs on me?
Yes, sir.
This is a hell of an armory.
Did you catch that?
Yeah, it's my one trick.
What do you think of our little town?
It's, charming.
After the death of its sheriff, an interim replacement, Ulysses, played by Bob Odenkirk, is brought into the small Minnesota town of Normal until a new sheriff can be selected. Expecting it to be a simple and quiet life, Ulysses finds the town and the folk who inhabit it to be just as laid back and friendly as a community as he'd hoped. However, only days into the job, the town has its first major crime in a long while, when an alarm signals that a bank robbery is in progress. Things escalate rapidly at the bank when the robbers wish to access the vault, which uncovers a deep secret that the small town is hiding, and Ulysses soon finds himself and the two robbers caught up in a Yakuza operation right in the heart of the USA. Coming from writer Derek Kolstad, who helped create John Wick and Nobody, Normal is packed with the same kind of humour in the midst of chaos that those films are populated with, and many of the same beats are followed. The first act of the film follows the daily life of Ulysses as he gets to know the townsfolk, and he shares some of his backstory as to why he wanted a simple life, before Act 2 kicks in with explosive fury when the whole town turn against him and the duo of robbers, with an assault on the senses of comical action moments in rapid succession. The final act works around to play in a somewhat unexpected way as Ulysses looks for the simplest way to restore the normality of the town, which just about works. But overall, this is a film that isn't taking itself seriously one bit, so just go along with the fun ride. Ben Wheatley directs this with the kind of comical energy he gave in Free Fire, with a very similar layer of dark comedy and hilariously bloody moments, and when combined with Odenkirk's now familiar approach to these type of characters in films, it just gels well for a well-paced runtime that buzzes by. The cast around Odenkirk include Henry Winkler as the mayor of Normal and Lena Headey as a bartender that Ulysses befriends, and they each get fun standout moments. Some of the other cast are slightly underserved in the chaotic action, especially Jess McLeod playing Alex, the ex-military child of the original sheriff, who it feels there should have been a few more scenes with, but most of the townsfolk are simply there for target practice, and in that, they deliver well. Normal is nothing fresh, and it's unlikely that I'll look to return to it at any point in the future, but it did pass the time well enough for a fun watch.
A film that we have both seen that landed on Disney Plus this week is The Punisher: One Last Kill.
Hey, Frank. How you doing, brother? Talk to me. Tell me what's going on.
Think God's gonna forgive us for the things we've done? I'm not sure about me. But you ain't got a chance.
The Punisher sees the return of John Bernthal playing Frank Castle, probably Marvel's most, well, outside of Wolverine, bloodiest hero. We originally had a Netflix series in which Bernthal played the title role. The character returned for Daredevil season 1 of Born Again, and now we have an incredibly mature and visceral take of this, as Marvel call it, one of their special presentations. John Bernthal's Frank Castle, the murderous vigilante whose basically his aim is to eradicate in whatever bloody way he can every villain on the planet. But what we've got here is, well, it's an interesting film. For most part of it is an introspection into who the Punisher is as we dig deep into his characterization. He's a man who has spent his entire life taking vengeance on the criminals for the death of his family. And for me, and I don't know what you thought, Andy, this kind of fits in between the end of the Netflix series and when we meet Frank Castle again in Born Again.
It feels like it should have come out before Born Again.
Yeah.
Rather than coming out after that had run. Because we'd mentioned when we were talking about Daredevil Born Again that the absence of the Punisher seems a bit weird in the second half of the series, given everything that's going on. And maybe this one shot will explain what he was up to, which it would kind of do, but it doesn't quite gel fully. That's not to say it's not good, because I love the exploration of the PTSD that Frank Castle clearly suffers. Anyone who's read the comics knows that this is a key aspect of his character. His PTSD battle is what led to his aggression and his violence. And there's many times that he's come close to suicidal as a result. And the first half hour of this taps that beautifully. It gives the humanity behind this vigilante. We don't just want Frank Castle going out and shooting people, because then it's just carnage, carnage, carnage with no care. We want a character to care for. And the Punisher, every time in film, has always kind of overlooked the humanity aspect of it and how he's a broken man. And this is the first time that they've tackled it head on and gone, he's broken. That's why he is who he is. And we need to empathize with the broken man in order to understand his actions.
Yeah, he's mentally spiraling out of control. He's tormented and haunted by the memories of his past. Everyone who he's connected to has died, or they've paid a price. And he's struggling at this point to find a reason to go on living. But that's the first 40 minutes of the film. And the second 40 minutes are brutal carnage. In fact, some of the most brutal carnage that I think I've ever seen on TV.
It's almost Raid-esque.
Yeah.
In the last act.
He unleashes hell, doesn't he, basically?
Yes. It's impressive. It's deep. It's melancholic. It's thoughtful. It's bloody. It's brutal. It's violent. It's everything condensed into one-shot movie. I want to see Frank Castle more going forward. We know he's going to be popping up in the Spider-Man movie. Obviously, he'll have to be a toned back and reined in version, but this has happened in the comics so many times. Whenever Punisher crosses over into Spider-Man, he's not the over-the-top brutal killer that you see in the Punisher titles itself. It's how comic books work. But I do want to see a return to this kind of Punisher at some point. Give us a mini-series. Bring him into the next season of Daredevil Born Again. Whatever. Frank Castle should not be sidelined, and this one shot has showcased exactly why he shouldn't be sidelined. He's not a one-trick pony with a gun. He's something deeper. He's something more thoughtful, something more personal.
I think this is the most authentic take we've had of the Punisher so far. He is a fan favorite, anti-hero. The biggest regret for me watching this is it was far too short. 50 minutes only really scraped the surface. Yes, it was a bloody scraping, but I wanted to spend more time to understand Frank Castle. And when he dons the now infamous skull and crossbones bulletproof shirt, as you've just said, I want to spend more time with this version of Frank Castle. Let's hope he's back. That's it for the reviews. What is coming out this week?
So at cinemas this week, in the UK in particular, we switch over to the school holidays. So obviously there's a lot of family content. Charlie the Wonder Dog, animated movie that looks like the kind of thing that if you ordered DC Super Pets from Temu, this is what they'd send you. Tom and Jerry, Forbidden Compass. If you ordered a Tom and Jerry movie from Temu, this is what they'd send you. Passenger, Brit comedy Finding Emily. But the big film is Mandalorian and Grogu, which lands around the world this coming weekend at cinemas. Over on Now TV and Sky, if you didn't watch it at the cinema, which, looking at the box office figures, not many people did, The Bride lands on there this week. So does Gabby's Dollhouse and One Last Deal. Over on Netflix, The Boroughs, Ladies First, Maxine lands on there this week. Oh, that needs a rewatch. Thelma, and It Ends With Us. And over on Amazon, the new Jack Ryan movie, Ghost War, lands on there this week, spinning off from the Jack Ryan TV series of recent years.
And that, folks, that's us done, more or less, for this week. But before we go, let's talk about our neat things, stuff that we have enjoyed that we want to share, with the hope that you will check it out. And as ever, neat things start with you, Andy. What has been, I guess you've got 2 weeks worth of neat things to discuss.
I've been listening over the past week and a half to audiobook, and that is Caught Stealing by Charlie Houston. Now, those who are regular listeners to the show will know that I adored the film Caught Stealing last year, which was an adaptation of the first book in his Caught Stealing trilogy. I then rewatched it in recent months and loved it all over again. I always tell people you should go and watch Caught Stealing, but I'd never read the books. So I popped them onto the audiobook version, and boy, are these so good. The books are written from first-person perspective in the mind of the lead protagonist. And whilst there's changes made when it translates to film, as you'd expect, every author knows that the material that's in spoken word works one way, but for a visual medium, you need to do something different. The core essence of the characters is there, and the core essence of the story is there. I'm just at the end of Caught Stealing now, And I'm looking forward to the next 2 books to follow, which are 6 Bad Things and A Dangerous Man to Follow, which complete the trilogy. Charlie Houston, I've never read any of his materials before, but I've seen that he's got like various other series, so I will be dipping further and further across. But if, like me, you watched Caught Stealing and you loved the raw punk rock energy of it, I thoroughly recommend heading over and checking out the books. They are definitely a neat thing. They are such easy reads, or in my case, such easy things to have read to you. I love a good audiobook. I love someone's voice telling me a story. It's so relaxing on the bus. Caught Stealing by Charlie Houston. That's my neat thing this week.
And my neat thing is, well, it came out in 2021. I recorded it when it landed on Sky, and it just kind of sat there. For whatever reason, I don't know. All of its credentials should have made this a must-watch at the time. But it's like lots of other things. You record these things, they get pushed back, and they get pushed back. But now I had the time. I thought, I'm going to give it a go. And it's the last series produced, written, and directed by Joss Whedon before, well, Joss Whedon kind of got cancelled. That's a whole other debate, whether he should be or should not. But he did go out with a bit of a peculiar bang. This has all the elements of a Joss Whedon show. Female lead, check. Recognizable, almost comic book points, check. Fantastic dialogue, check. Unusual setting, check. The Nevers is about a group of Victorian women who suddenly gain mysterious superpowers. And then they go up against a relentless stream of enemies to fulfill a mission which could change the world. If those are all the things that you love about Joss Whedon, then you will love this. It's kind of a cross between a Victorian X-Men. It's got elements of the Avengers, the John Steed version, with hints towards Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This only lasted basically 1 season, even though it was a double season that they put out. So it was going to end with, season 1 was going to end with episode 6, but they expanded it to 12 episodes to include the second part series before Joss Whedon left the show, a show of his own making, to be taken over by somebody else. And while you can see the join, all the key elements are still there. Fantastic cast of Laura Donnelly as Amelia True. How much more of a Whedon name can you get? And Penance Adair, played by Anna Skelly, and even a supervillain in the form of Amy Manson as Malady. If anything, given that they've got a HBO budget, it has a tendency to fall into Game of Thrones nudity, violence, and lots of swear words. But it's fresh, it's different. Of course, it's science fiction that deals with bigger topics, women being seen, women being recognized for their own abilities, put down by government and put down by men. But it's a lot of fun. Is it Whedon's best work? Absolutely not. You're never going to get better than Firefly or the first seasons of Buffy for me. But it's an intriguing piece of work. Well worth checking out, because recently it landed on ITVX. And if you can sit through an advert every 5 minutes, it is well worth your time as a fellow geek. So mine is The Nevers. You can find it on ITVX, or just check to see if you did record it back in 2021. It's just been sat there waiting to be viewed. And that just about wraps things up, and time to say goodbye. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your kind comments. I'll be back next week. After that, we're just going to suck it and see. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to see you in the flesh, perhaps.
Not much to look forward to this. I mean, Mandalorian Grogu, I'm still not excited for it.
No, neither am I. Word's been good. It's not been terrible.
It's been mixed. I've seen like people saying it's fun, but it feels episodic. And so it feels like it should just be a TV series. I don't know.
It'll be worth checking out when we talk about the box office next week to see where we are with it. Yes. So, Andy, I'll speak to you later, my friend. You take care.
You definitely take care.
I promise I will. And Andy, if you can't trust a South American drug lord, then who can you trust?